Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
This is my top 5 Joseph Gordon-Levitt films. I am a fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, although he has done some stinkers. There are some of his movies that I am not a fan of that are just, they bum me out because I am a fan of his. You know, aside from Third Rock from the Sun, which is a show that I've rewatched many times. It's a show that I watched when it was originally airing on TV. Great show. In addition to A River Runs Through It, which is a very young Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I loved A River Runs Through It back in the day. I was super into fishing growing up, and fly fishing was this romantic kind of style of fishing that I really started loving from that, but never really got into. But yeah, very young Joseph Gordon-Levitt in that film. But I've been a fan of his throughout his career. He's had some ups, he's had some downs, but he's always pretty consistent. And these are the movies that are my favorite of his. Now, he's in some great movies, don't get me wrong, that I'm not adding to this list because I don't feel like they are a Joseph Gordon-Levitt film. Like, he isn't the main guy in those movies, so I don't necessarily consider those movies to be Joseph Gordon-Levitt films. At least that's my criteria for how I'm making this list. Obviously, Christopher Nolan is a director that he's worked with. That he's in almost every Christopher Nolan film. He's in almost every Rian Johnson film, even uncredited parts of the film he seems to be a part of. These directors bring him in, they like working with him. But some of those movies I'm not going to add. Like Knives Out, he's in Knives Out. He's like a voice at some point, and I love Knives Out, my favorite Rian Johnson film, but I'm not picking that one because I don't consider that to be a Joseph Gordon-Levitt film. I consider that to be a Daniel Craig film, far more, or a Rian Johnson film. That's how I'd describe it. So these are my top 5 films that I believe to be Joseph Gordon-Levitt films, but also these are my top 5 favorite films of his. So let's get it started, shall we? Speaking of Rian Johnson, and I don't know if the order in my Rian Johnson film may be, because there might be a couple Rian Johnson films on this list. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely this first one coming in at number 5 is Rian Johnson's film from 2012, Looper. This one obviously starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis playing the same character at different points in their life. This is a hitman crime movie that has a sci-fi element of time travel. It also has a sci-fi element of telekinesis, like people have this ability. So it's a mildly futuristic tale of crime, given a couple supernatural sci-fi elements, which I love the movie. The only reason this is my number 5 is because Bruce Willis was not willing to do any prosthetics for the role. Joseph Gordon-Levitt obviously has a nose prosthetic, which I think it holds up. It's just weird. It's clear that he's got a prosthetic on, and because of that weirdness, it's at number 5. But also because the movie, it kind of takes a while before you figure out what the movie's about and this other story that makes everything more potent. But it is a great movie. I love Rian Johnson, one of my favorite directors. And this is a great role for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, kind of like a little bit more of a tough guy, where he's not always, he's just kind of, in a lot of roles, he's just kind of the happy, nice, average guy, which I enjoy. I enjoy that aspect. Very charming, very boyish looks. But yeah, number 5 for me, my 5th favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt film is Looper. My number 4 Joseph Gordon-Levitt film is a movie that I saw in theaters the very day that Steve Jobs passed away from his battle with cancer. And this movie just so happens to have cancer as one of the narrative elements of the story. And this movie obviously is 50-50. This is directed by Jonathan Levine back in 2011, so a year before Looper. This is Seth Rogen plays JGL's best friend, and JGL has some back pain. He's in a relationship that's not the greatest, and Seth Rogen's character is not a fan of his girlfriend, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets this back pain. They both work at a radio station, which is kind of interesting. You know, it's similarities to podcasting, which in 2011 I had been podcasting for a few years, and you know, kind of the beginning of the end of radio. But he works at like an NPR type radio station where he's doing story pieces on like volcanoes, and he's not in a good relationship, and he starts getting cancer. He finds out that he has this tumor on his spine that they try to fix with chemo and then eventually get to surgery. Seth Rogen plays a great best friend who busts Joseph Gordon-Levitt's girlfriend that she's cheating on him. Like, JGL gives her the out, and she doesn't take it, and just not a good person. Like, definitely, I have had friends that have been in relationships with similar dynamics, and I, similarly to Seth Rogen, have voiced my opinion on those people in those relationships, trying to tell my friend that that's a toxic relationship. And so I relate to this movie a lot, and it had a bigger punch being that I watched this movie the day that a guy that Steve Jobs, somebody that's an inspiration in a lot of ways as a creative person, you know, doing what he did, I definitely looked up to him. So it hurt to see that he passed away, even though leading up to that, you knew he was battling cancer and he was withering away. Like, you could tell that he wasn't going in the right direction to be hopeful for health. And then to watch this movie, it's an extra gut punch. But yeah, I love this movie. It's a fun movie. I rewatched it recently for this draft, and it's fun. He has the relationship with his therapist that is kind of a sweet kind of a thing that is a side story within this movie. But I enjoyed the movie. Great performance by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and also fun to see him teamed up with Seth Green. That was a fun aspect to it. So that's my number 4 Joseph Gordon-Levitt film, 50-50. Moving on to number 3, my third favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt film is another one written and directed by the one and only Rian Johnson. This one being Rian Johnson's debut film in Brick. Came out 2005. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a high schooler in this like stylish neo-noir film set in Southern California. This girl that he's got a crush on goes missing, and he gets swept up in the mystery of what happened to her. And it's, the writing has Rian Johnson's great stylistic. I mean, the dialogue is very much like a noir film dialogue, which is an interesting contrast, having it set in the bright and sunny Southern California suburbs. It's great. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing this tough guy that's really smart, but, when he gets into scraps, he can kind of hold his own. There's a really great scene where there's a fight with him in a parking lot with a guy that's like, kind of as he's investigating, trying to find out what happened. Like, this guy, it's a great fight, and it's, just You got a tough Joseph Gordon-Levitt, smart, figuring it out, high school student just determined to find out what happened to this girl. And it's a great movie, and it's a great performance by him, and I'm sure the fact that he did that, and it was such a well-received movie that started Rian Johnson's career. That's probably why Rian Johnson has him in every film that he does in some like capacity. Even the Star Wars film, he's like he like does a voice, or he's it's like he's in everything that he does. And one of the best, like the films that Rian Johnson does with him, I think are the best films that some of the best films that I don't know. They're a great team. They team up well together. So Brick is my number 3 favorite favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt. If you want, I've done my Rian Johnson top 5. That's another episode. Probably will show up as a link at the end of this episode. But I highly recommend checking that out. But moving on to number 2. This is my second favorite. And this movie almost didn't make the list. It's a movie that I literally watched and literally reviewed on one of the earliest episodes of The Ray Taylor Show, but completely forgot about what the movie was about, so I rewatched it. And that movie that almost wouldn't have made my list, I thought may have been a number 5 film, but was so good and such a different type of performance from Joseph Gordon-Levitt that it had to come in at number 2. So my number 2 favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt film is, a little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. So my number 2 favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt film is Hesher. This is a 2010 independent film directed by Spencer Susick, I believe, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays like this cross between like a heavy metal Tyler Durden and the Dude. Like he's ambiguous age, probably playing like 20s something. He lives out of this van, you know, where he's always blasting heavy metal music. He's got his grungy long hair. He's got his shitty tattoos all over his body. He plays like this tough, just insane person, but then also drops like these words of wisdom throughout the thing, which is very like a Tyler Durden-esque kind of a thing. But then he also has like this laid-back approach to something. Very interesting character. Like he's a character that's not necessarily likable, but when he drops these like nuggets of knowledge, you realize that it's like it's a character that's put a lot of thought into things, but is severely damaged, as are all of the characters in Hesher. I mean, it's a movie where every character is represents a different stage of grief, I would say. You have this kid who lost his mom, who's living with his dad and his grandma. His dad is severely depressed because he lost his wife. So he's dealing with a stage of depression. The kid is constantly bargaining, trying to get the car back that was totaled, that caused this woman's death. He wants that car back because it's the last piece of her that he has. So it's the bargaining aspect of it. Then you have the grandma that's kind of just acting like nothing happened, right? The denial stage. And then you have Natalie Portman, who is kind of the acceptance. Like, she accepts her reality. Despite how bad her reality is, she is accepting of her reality and her situation in life. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays like this anger. This anger that would be represented in everybody, right? He has like this where he just breaks loose and like does craziness, just acts out in the most destructive ways, but also adds like this heart and this like out of nowhere, just this love. How this movie ends, where let's just say a few of the characters go on a walk. Let's just put it that way. It's just so heartfelt. It's like if you don't tear up, it's amazing. It's like a character that's so different from all the other characters Joseph Gordon-Levitt played. Like he plays a tough guy now and then, but he's usually known as like the rom-com kind of happy-go-lucky kind of baby-face nice guy. But this one he's playing like a very hateable character, but still has those moments where he's dropping knowledge and truth on the situation. An amazing movie. I'm so happy I rewatched it for this. It's so good. I forget, it's streaming somewhere. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's called Hesher. Came out in 2010, directed by Spencer Sussick. And it's my second favorite. Just because he plays like the character he plays it's a good movie. It's a performance that's so different, and he pulls it off. Like it's a tightrope walk, which literally is a movie he's done. A character that does a tightrope walk. This is an emotional character tightrope a balancing act that he plays as this character Hesher, and highly recommend it. Obviously, is my number 2. But moving on to my number 1 movie, my favorite, my personal favorite. Now you may disagree with my list. And feel free to let me know what your list is of your top 5, because I would like to know. Maybe there's some gems out there that I'm missing. But this one is just a movie that for so much of my life has just been kind of a source of joy. It's a movie that I love to put on. It's a movie that I loved, and then my life in some ways reflected the reality what that movie was. Like, I had a relationship that was almost similar to the relationship in this movie in a lot of ways. But that movie I'm talking about, my favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt film, coming in at number 1, is 500 Days of Summer. It's a movie that came out in 2009 by Mark Webb, a guy that's had some hits and misses. But this is a movie I absolutely love. Romantic comedy with Zooey Deschanel, who is just an adorable, talented woman, female actress, and a perfect person to be set opposite of Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this film. I mean, this movie encapsulates in the best way what new relationship energy feels like, that NRE, right? It's got that scene where everything's animated. It's like this musical scene where he's, on his way to work, all happy after having sex with Zooey Deschanel, and cartoon characters are flying around him, and everything's going good. Like that kind of just like pure joy emotion. So good. And a good relationship movie, where Zooey Deschanel from the get-go says she doesn't want to be in a relationship, that she's looking for something more casual, but their relationship turns into something that's more casual. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, isn't looking for something more casual, but, is willing to try to convince her. And they are in a relationship. She's the one that she concedes what she wants out of a relationship, and compromises to, be more of in a committed relationship with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. And of course, eventually it doesn't go well, because for whatever reason, she's not on the same vibe as him. They're not on the same wavelength. He's not the right person for her at that particular time in their their life, and they fall apart. But this movie also has Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his character, working at a greeting card company when his dream is to be an architect. He loves architecture. I believe his character went to school for it, and he settled working in this greeting card company where it's like this pseudo related to what his passion is kind of a thing. So it's also a movie about him following his dreams, which after the breakup is when he gets depressed and decides, fuck it, I'm going to follow my dreams, which in a lot of ways, my life was very similar. I was in a relationship, probably my favorite relationship I've ever been in. When we first started going out, she wasn't looking for a long-term, committed monogamous relationship, whatever, but we ended up going out for 3 years until she dumped me. And I was broken. I've never been broken from any other relationship like I was broken from that relationship. But it put a mentality in my mind where I realized that the life I had just wasn't what I wanted. And this reality that I was living wasn't the reality that was going to work for what I want to do with my life. And I left. I changed my life, been surviving, following my passions of producing podcasts, of creating artwork, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character pursued his passions. I even painted a chalkboard wall in my studio when I lived in San Diego because of this movie. I mean, I love that wall. That was like the perfect wall. Now I use whiteboard. I have whiteboards all over the place to store ideas and a notebook. Like my ideas don't come in sketch form a lot of times. They just come out in written ideas. But yeah, this movie, an inspiration and a love. The soundtrack is amazing. Temper Trap is an album from a band, which I don't know if they did anything else, but that album is that one song, Sweet Disposition, is an amazing song. I love this movie so much. It's a movie that I've rewatched a ton of times, and it's kind of crazy that it's a movie I watched just before I had a relationship that was very similar in a lot of ways to that. I even watched this movie with her while we were going out. And then, she dumped me. I quit my job, moved to Denver, and have just been trying to survive ever since. But yeah, my favorite movie, personally, it has a lot of personal connection to me. It's 500 Days of Summer. And it's kind of the perfect, it's like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's born to play that type of role. The kind of nice guy, who romantic comedy, nice guy, smart, but vulnerable. He has a very unique kind of thing. And he stepped out of that on a few occasions, few movies, which I enjoy as well. But he'll always be that kind of guy for me. He'll always be that kind of sweet dude, which I appreciate. There needs to be more sweet dudes out there. But yeah, that's my top 5 Joseph Gordon-Levitt list of films. Let me say them one more time for you. Number 5 is Looper. Number 4 is 50-50. Number 3 is Brick. Number 2 is Hesher. Everybody check out all of these movies. And obviously, my number 1, 500 Days of Summer. There are movies of his, like the Snowden movie, which I've tried to watch a couple times. Similarly to The Walk, which I haven't seen, but just he does some movies where he's putting on a voice that I can't get behind. I don't know. It's for whatever reason I can't get behind it. It's just too much. It's almost like Brad Pitt doing his accent in Inglourious Bastards. If he had been more of the central focus of that film, I wouldn't love it as much. But the fact that he's just a really small part of it, I can overlook Brad Pitt's wacky accent in that movie. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt, when he's putting on an accent, sometimes, like the Snowden one, it's hard. It's tough. Couldn't get into it. And I haven't seen all of The Walk. The documentary is much better. Documentary's great. And I'm not a big fan of that director anyway. But yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt films. I'm trying to think of any other ones that might be honorable mentions or whatever. But yeah, anyway. Oh, like Inception and stuff like that, Batman. But those I don't think are Joseph Gordon-Levitt films. I think these ones are special because he's the lead, and they're great. They're great movies too. But yeah, that's my top 5 list of Joseph Gordon-Levitt films. Please let me know in the comments or on social media what your favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt films are. If there's something that I need to check out, I will do it because I am a fan. So yeah. Oh yeah, the Lincoln. I've heard that's great. He plays like younger Lincoln. I don't know how much of a part of that movie he is. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe that would be on the list, but I'm happy with this list. So and that one I think is more of a Daniel Day-Lewis Spielberg film than I do Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So anyway, just that caveat, that movie I forgot to mention is also. But yeah, let me know what your favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt films are, and enjoy the films. Watch Hesher. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com, and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!